Admiral Zephon stood before the massive holographic display, his forearms crossed in disbelief. The blue-skinned Valdarian had commanded fleets for over 3 centuries, but nothing had prepared him for what he was seeing. The tactical screen showed dozens of human vessels scattered across the Kepler system, each one broadcasting the same impossible message. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the UES Defiance. You are trespassing in human territory. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." The message repeated on every frequency, transmitted by ships that should not exist. According to Imperial intelligence, humanity had barely achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. They were supposed to be a primitive species confined to their home system, useful only as slave labor for the Empire's mining operations. "Sir, we're receiving similar transmissions from 37 different vessels," reported Lieutenant Commander Vex, his tentacles dancing nervously over the communication console. "They're spread across the entire system perimeter." Zephon's secondary arms gestured dismissively. 37 ships against our battle fleet of 200? They must be desperate or insane." He turned to his tactical officer. "What's their fleet composition?" The young Zelkan officer's scales shifted to a worried purple as he studied his readings. "That's just it, Admiral. These aren't warships. According to our scans, most of them are converted cargo vessels, mining ships, and what appears to be civilian transports. No heavy armor, no shield generators we can detect." "Pathetic," Zephon snorted. "Open a channel to all human vessels." The main screen flickered, showing the determined face of Captain Chen. Behind her, Zephon could see a bridge that looked like it had been hastily converted from a cargo hauler. Exposed cables ran along the walls, and the crew wore mismatched uniforms that spoke of a desperate militia rather than a proper navy. "I am Admiral Zephon of the Imperial Fourth Fleet," he announced, his voice carrying the authority of countless conquered worlds. "You will surrender immediately. Your pathetic collection of scrap metal stands against the might of the Galactic Empire. We have 200 fully armed battleships. You have mining equipment and cargo haulers." Captain Chen's expression didn't change. "Admiral, you seem to be under a misunderstanding. This isn't our fleet." Zephon's laugh rumbled through the bridge. "Really? Then what do you call this ragtag collection?" "Advanced scouts," Chen replied calmly. "The primary human fleet hasn't even arrived yet." The Valdarian admiral's laughter died in his throat. "Impossible. Our intelligence indicates humans possess fewer than 100 interstellar-capable vessels in total." "Your intelligence is 50 years out of date," Chen said. "We've been busy." Before Zephon could respond, his sensor officer called out in alarm. "Admiral, new contacts entering the system. Multiple hyperspace signatures detected at the edge of sensor range." The tactical display began updating, showing new blips appearing throughout the outer system. First dozens, then hundreds, then thousands of new contacts materialized from hyperspace. The display struggled to keep up with the incoming data. "How many?" Zephon demanded, his confidence beginning to crack. "Still counting, sir. Over 3,000 contacts and climbing. These readings, they're massive. Much larger than anything in our database for human vessels." Captain Chen's image smiled grimly. "Admiral, meet the human defense fleet. We've spent the last 50 years preparing for this day. While you were conquering primitive worlds and growing comfortable in your superiority, we were building, learning, adapting." The sensor readings continued to climb. 5,000 ships, 7,000, 10,000. Each one larger than anything humanity was supposed to possess. The Imperial fleet, once an overwhelming force, now seemed like a small patrol group facing a hurricane. "This has to be some kind of sensor error," Zephon muttered, but his voice lacked conviction. "Humans don't have this kind of technology, this kind of industrial capacity." "You never bothered to ask what we were capable of," Chen replied. "You saw our first stuttering steps into space and assumed we'd stay that way forever. You cataloged us as a minor species suitable for subjugation. That was your first mistake. The main tactical display now showed the true scope of the human fleet. Massive dreadnoughts 10 times the size of Imperial battleships hung in space like sleeping giants. Carrier vessels the length of small moons deployed clouds of fighter craft that moved in perfect formation. Support ships larger than space stations took position throughout the system. Impossible, Zephon whispered. Where did you get this technology? These resources? We made them ourselves, Chen said simply. Turns out humans are pretty good at problem solving when someone threatens their home. We looked at your empire, studied your tactics, analyzed your technology, then we built something better. Warning klaxons began sounding throughout the Imperial flagship as human ships powered up weapon systems that registered far beyond anything in Imperial databases. Energy readings spiked across the electromagnetic spectrum as the human fleet prepared for battle. You have one chance, Admiral, Chen continued, her voice carrying the weight of 10,000 ships behind it. Withdraw from this system immediately. Go back to your empire and tell them humanity is no longer available for conquest. Zephon stared at the display, watching as his 200-ship fleet was dwarfed by the human armada. His tactical officers reported weapons locks from hundreds of human vessels, energy signatures that suggested firepower capable of reducing entire planets to rubble. This changes everything, he said quietly. Yes, Chen agreed. It does. The question now is whether your empire learns from this moment or forces us to teach harder lessons. The Imperial Admiral looked around his bridge at officers whose confidence had evaporated like morning mist. 3 centuries of naval tradition told him to fight, to die with honor rather than retreat. But 3 centuries of experience also told him when a battle was hopeless. All ships, he announced slowly, prepare for hyperspace jump. We're returning to Imperial space. Wise choice, Chen said. But Admiral, when you report to your superiors, make sure they understand something important. What's that? This fleet you're seeing? This is just our defensive force, the ships we keep at home to protect our families. Her smile turned predatory. You really don't want to see what we've built for offensive operations. As the Imperial fleet began its retreat, Zephon couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy had just changed forever. Humanity wasn't the primitive species they'd cataloged decades ago. They were something else entirely, something that had been hiding in plain sight while building an empire of their own. The last thing he saw before jumping to hyperspace was the human fleet maintaining perfect formation, 10,000 ships moving as one. Somewhere in the depths of human space, he knew there were more ships, more weapons, more surprises. The Emergency Council of the Galactic Empire convened in the Grand Chamber of the Imperial Palace on Valdros Prime. Representatives from dozens of species filled the massive circular hall, their various forms creating a symphony of colors and shapes that usually represented the Empire's diversity. Today, however, that diversity was united by a single emotion: fear. Emperor Maltheus sat upon his throne of crystallized starlight, his ancient form radiating the authority that had held the galaxy together for over 1,000 years. The Eternal Emperor had seen civilizations rise and fall, had personally overseen the conquest of hundreds of worlds. Nothing in his long reign had prepared him for Admiral Zephon's report. "Tell me again about their fleet composition," the Emperor commanded, his voice carrying across the chamber without technological assistance. When Maltheus spoke, reality itself seemed to listen. Admiral Zephon stood at attention in the center of the hall, still wearing his battle-damaged uniform from the Kepler system encounter. "Your Majesty, initial scans detected over 10,000 vessels. Our xenobiology experts have confirmed these are indeed human constructs, not borrowed technology from other species." Council Member Thys, a serpentine creature representing the scientific castes, raised her head. Impossible. Human industrial capacity was assessed at marginal levels. They lack the resource base for such a fleet. That's what we thought, Zephan replied grimly. Intelligence reports indicated humans controlled only their home system and a few outer colonies. We were wrong. Catastrophically wrong. General Krex of the Imperial Marines slammed his massive fist against his podium. Numbers mean nothing without quality. What of their weapons technology? The Admiral's expression darkened further. Energy signatures beyond our current capabilities. Their smallest frigates showed power outputs equivalent to our heavy cruisers. Their dreadnoughts... He paused, struggling with the implications. Their dreadnoughts registered energy levels we've never seen from mobile platforms. You're telling this council that a species we classified as primitive has somehow surpassed our technology? The voice belonged to Councillor Vexthar, whose species had contributed much of the Empire's advanced engineering. That's absurd. Sir, with respect, I'm telling you what our sensors recorded. Human technology appears to be at least 50 years ahead of our own, possibly more. They didn't just catch up to us, they surpassed us while we weren't paying attention. Emperor Malthius leaned forward slightly, and the entire chamber fell silent. How? Zephan activated a holographic projector, displaying tactical recordings from the encounter. The massive human fleet hung in space like a wall of metal and energy, their formations perfect, their coordination absolute. Analysis of their ship design suggests they've been studying Imperial technology for decades, the Admiral explained. But they didn't copy us. They improved upon everything. Our armor plating? They've developed something denser and lighter. Our energy shields? Theirs appear to be multi-phase and self-repairing. Our weapons systems look primitive by comparison. The hologram zoomed in on one of the human dreadnoughts, its hull bristling with weapon systems that defied easy categorization. They've also solved problems we never even attempted, Zephan continued. Their ships show evidence of advanced artificial intelligence integration, automated manufacturing systems, and something our engineers are calling adaptive technology, weapons and defenses that modify themselves in real time based on battlefield conditions. Councillor Thiss's scales had shifted to a pale, worried hue. What about their crew requirements? Logistics? Supply lines? That's perhaps the most disturbing part, the Admiral admitted. Preliminary analysis suggests many of their ships are largely automated. They can maintain this fleet with a fraction of the personnel we would require. Their logistics appear to be based on mobile manufacturing platforms that can construct new vessels using raw materials gathered from asteroid fields. They can build ships in space? General Krex interrupted. Without major shipyard facilities? Not just ships, General. Everything. Weapons, ammunition, spare parts, even food. They've essentially created a self-sustaining military force that can operate indefinitely without returning to base. The chamber erupted in nervous conversation as the implications sank in. Emperor Malthius raised one hand, and silence returned instantly. What of their intentions? The Emperor asked. Did they make any demands? Only that we withdraw from their territory, Your Majesty. But their definition of their territory appears to be expansive. Captain Chen mentioned that this fleet was purely defensive and hinted at offensive capabilities we haven't seen. Offensive capabilities? The Emperor's eyes narrowed. You mean there are more ships? Your Majesty, the human captain specifically stated that what we observed was their defensive force, the ships they keep at home to protect their families. She implied their offensive fleet is separate and more powerful. The silence in the chamber was deafening. For over a millennium, the Galactic Empire had been the dominant force in their region of space. They had conquered, absorbed, or destroyed every civilization they encountered. The idea that another power had secretly grown to surpass them was unthinkable. We need more intelligence, declared Councillor Vexthar. Send spy ships, infiltrate their space, find their weaknesses. Admiral Zephan shook his head. Sir, we tried. 3 stealth reconnaissance vessels were dispatched to human space immediately after our retreat. All 3 were detected and captured within hours. The humans returned them to our border with a message. What message? They gave us complete technical specifications for our stealth technology, pointing out 17 different ways to improve it. Then they politely asked us to stop sending spies, as it was becoming an administrative burden to keep capturing and returning our ships. The chamber fell silent again. The implications were staggering. Not only had humans detected Imperial stealth technology effortlessly, they had analyzed it, improved upon it, and sent the improvements back as a diplomatic courtesy. "They're toying with us," General Krex growled. "This is psychological warfare." "No," Emperor Malthius said quietly, his ancient voice carrying the weight of terrible understanding. "This is mercy. They're showing us they could destroy our reconnaissance efforts without breaking diplomatic relations. They're being polite." Counselor Theis's voice trembled slightly. "Your Majesty, if their defensive capabilities are this advanced, what might their offensive fleet look like?" The Emperor stood slowly, his movement causing ripples of energy to flow through the crystalline throne. "That, honored counselor, is precisely what concerns me. For 1,000 years, this empire has been built on the assumption that we possess superior technology and overwhelming force. If humans have surpassed us so completely, we adapt," General Krex declared firmly. "We always have. We study their technology, improve our own, find their weaknesses. And if they continue to advance faster than we can catch up," the Emperor asked, "what if their 50-year head start becomes a 100-year gap? What if they decide our empire is a threat to their security?" Admiral Zephon cleared his throat nervously. "Your Majesty, there's something else. During our encounter, I noticed something about their crew behavior. They weren't afraid at all, facing an Imperial battle fleet that outnumbered their scouts 20-1, and they showed no fear. Just determination and confidence." "Confidence?" "Yes, sir. The kind of confidence that comes from absolute certainty of victory. They knew their main fleet was coming. They knew what it was capable of. They weren't worried about the outcome because they had already calculated it." Emperor Malthius returned to his throne, suddenly looking every one of his 1,000 years. "Tell me, Admiral, in your professional opinion, if we were to face this human fleet in open battle, what would be the outcome?" The Admiral met his Emperor's gaze without flinching. "Total annihilation of Imperial forces, Your Majesty. We would be completely outclassed in every category that matters. Technology, numbers, coordination, logistics. It wouldn't be a battle. It would be a massacre." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. For the first time in a millennium, the Galactic Empire faced a force it could not overcome through military might. "Then," the Emperor said slowly, "perhaps it is time we learned a new approach to galactic relations. Send an envoy to human space. Not a spy or a scout, but a proper diplomatic mission. It appears we have much to learn about our new neighbors." As the council members filed out to implement the Emperor's orders, none of them could shake the feeling that they were witnessing the end of an era. The age of Imperial dominance was over, and the age of humanity had begun. Ambassador Keltar had served the Galactic Empire for 2 centuries, but nothing in his diplomatic training had prepared him for this moment. The Rigelian diplomat stood on the observation deck of the Imperial cruiser Harmony as it approached the human homeworld of Earth, watching what could only be described as the most magnificent display of military power he had ever witnessed. Space around Earth swarmed with human vessels. Not just the defensive fleet Admiral Zephon had encountered, but something far more impressive. Massive orbital shipyards stretched across the system like metallic rings, each one larger than most Imperial space stations. Construction bays held partially completed vessels that dwarfed anything in the Imperial Navy. By the ancient stars, whispered Captain Voltes from beside him. The ship's commander, a veteran of 50 first contact missions, stared in awe at the scope of human industry. How many ships are there? Commander Sarah Chen materialized as a hologram on the observation deck, her image transmitted from the human escort vessel that had met them at the system's edge. The same captain who had faced down Admiral Zephon now served as their guide into human space. "Welcome to the Sol system, Ambassador," Chen said warmly. "I hope your journey was comfortable. As you can see, we've been busy since your fleet's visit to Kepler." Keltar activated his translation matrix and bowed formally. "Captain Chen, I bring greetings from Emperor Maltheus and the Galactic Empire. We come seeking understanding and perhaps a new relationship between our peoples." "We are honored by your visit," Chen replied. "Though I should mention that what you're seeing here represents only a fraction of our total defensive capability. Most of our fleet is deployed throughout human space on training exercises." The ambassador tried to maintain his diplomatic composure, but the implications were staggering. If this massive armada was only a fraction of human military might, exactly how powerful had they become? "Your industrial capacity is impressive," he managed to say. "Our intelligence services clearly underestimated human progress." Chen smiled. "That's understandable. We've always preferred to work quietly. Would you like a tour? I think it might help your emperor understand what humanity has become." The escort ship guided them through the orbital infrastructure, and Keltar found himself taking detailed notes for his report. Each revelation was more shocking than the last. Automated factories that could construct a battleship in weeks rather than years. Mining operations that had turned entire asteroid belts into raw materials. Massive habitat rings that housed billions of humans in comfort that exceeded anything available on most Imperial worlds. "This shipyard alone produces more vessels per year than our entire industrial sector," Captain Voltes admitted quietly. "How did we miss this?" "Because you weren't looking," Chen answered, having overheard the comment. "Your empire focuses on conquest and subjugation. We focused on growth and innovation. While you were busy controlling other species, we were busy becoming something new." They passed a construction dock where something truly massive was taking shape. The vessel under construction stretched for dozens of kilometers, its hull bristling with weapon systems that made Imperial dreadnoughts look like children's toys. "That's the UES Prometheus," Chen explained casually. "Our newest class of deep space exploration vessel. She's designed for long-range missions into unexplored regions of the galaxy." "Exploration vessel?" Keltar asked weakly. "It appears to be armed for major combat operations." "Space can be dangerous," Chen replied with a slight smile. "We believe in being prepared for any situation our explorers might encounter." The implications were clear. Humanity had built exploration ships more powerful than Imperial battleships. Their scouts could overwhelm entire Imperial fleets. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted so dramatically that the Empire's military advantage had become a joke. "Captain," the ambassador said carefully, "might I ask about your offensive fleet? The one you mentioned to Admiral Zephon?" Chen's expression grew more serious. "That's classified information, Ambassador. But I can tell you that humanity takes the defense of our allies very seriously. Any threat to human interests or our friends would be met with an appropriate response." "Allies?" This was new information. Humanity has formed alliances? "Oh yes. Quite a few, actually. It turns out many species in this region were interested in alternatives to Imperial membership. We've been building relationships for decades." The tour continued, revealing layer after layer of human achievement. Advanced research facilities that had solved problems Imperial scientists considered impossible. Agricultural systems that could feed billions without depleting planetary resources. educational institutions that had revolutionized learning and development. But it was the final stop that truly drove home the magnitude of the situation. They were brought to a massive space station positioned at one of the system's Lagrange points. From the outside, it looked like a research facility. Inside, Ambassador Keltar discovered something that changed his understanding of everything. "This is our strategic planning center," Chen explained as they walked through corridors lined with holographic displays. "We monitor galactic affairs and model potential scenarios for human security." One wall displayed a three-dimensional map of local galactic space, showing Imperial territory alongside dozens of other political entities. But what caught Keltar's attention were the simulation windows running complex battle scenarios. "You've been wargaming conflicts with the Empire?" he asked. "Among others," Chen confirmed. "We've run approximately 10 million simulations of potential military encounters between human forces and various galactic powers. The results are quite comprehensive." She gestured to one display showing a tactical analysis. The screen showed Imperial fleet movements being countered by human forces in scenario after scenario. In every simulation, Imperial forces were decisively defeated, usually within hours. 10 million simulations, Keltar repeated numbly. "We're thorough," Chen said simply. "Humanity learned long ago that preparation prevents poor performance. We've modeled every possible conflict scenario, every potential threat, every conceivable military challenge. The result is that we know exactly how to defend ourselves against any aggressor. And if the Empire were to, hypothetically, launch a full invasion?" Chen pulled up another display showing the Empire's complete order of battle alongside projected human responses. The analysis was devastating. Human forces would not only repel an invasion, but could launch counterstrikes that would cripple Imperial military capability within weeks. "Ambassador," Chen said gently, "I want you to understand something important. Humanity doesn't seek conquest or domination. We're not interested in ruling other species or building an empire. We simply want to be left alone to develop and grow in peace. But you've prepared for war on a scale that dwarfs anything the Empire can field," Keltar pointed out. "Because we've learned that peace requires strength. The galaxy is full of powers that believe might makes right. We've simply ensured that our might is sufficient to guarantee our rights." They were joined by another human, an elderly man with graying hair who radiated quiet authority. "Ambassador, this is Admiral Martinez, head of our Strategic Defense Command," Chen introduced. Martinez shook the ambassador's hand in the human greeting custom. "Ambassador Keltar, it's an honor to meet you. I understand you're here to discuss future relations between our peoples. Admiral, I must ask directly, what does humanity want from the Empire?" Martinez considered the question carefully. Respect, recognition, and the understanding that the age of easy conquest is over. The Empire has grown comfortable believing that superior technology and overwhelming force can solve any problem. That's no longer true. "You're threatening us?" "No, Ambassador. We're educating you. The galaxy is changing. Humanity represents that change. We're not the only species that's been advancing while the Empire focused on controlling territory instead of developing technology. There are others out there growing stronger, building their own capabilities." Keltar felt a chill run through his diplomatic core. "Others? The Andorian Confederation has developed psionic warfare capabilities that would devastate Imperial fleets," Martinez explained matter-of-factly. "The Centauri Republic has mastered nanotechnology that makes their ships virtually indestructible. The Free Worlds Alliance has created artificial intelligence networks that can coordinate fleet actions across multiple star systems simultaneously. While the Empire was building more of the same old ships and conquering primitive worlds," Chen added, "the rest of the galaxy was innovating, advancing, preparing for a future where brute force wouldn't be enough." The ambassador realized he wasn't just witnessing the rise of humanity. He was seeing evidence of a galactic revolution that had happened while the Empire slept, confident in its own superiority. "What do you recommend?" he asked quietly. Admiral Martinez smiled. "Adaptation, evolution. The Empire can choose to remain relevant by embracing change, or it can cling to old ways and become a historical footnote. We're offering partnership, not domination. Trade, not tribute. Cooperation, not conquest." As the diplomatic mission prepared to return to Imperial space, Ambassador Keltar composed his report with hands that trembled slightly. The Empire faced a choice that would determine its survival, evolve, or become extinct. The age of Imperial dominance was over. The age of galactic cooperation was beginning. And humanity, the species they had dismissed as primitive, would be leading the way into a new era among the stars. The primary human fleet hadn't needed to arrive after all. The threat of its existence was enough to change everything, waiting for any empire foolish enough to threaten Earth. The age of easy conquest was over. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy, and nothing would ever be the same.